Hey, welcome back, peeps, to another episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast. Happy National Dental Hygienists Week. Happy Oral Health Month. Happy whatever day today is that you're listening to this episode or watching this on YouTube. I'd like to share with you some really cool things that are happening over the next week, especially here in Canada. The Canadian Dental Hygiene Association has ramped up its marketing campaigns. There are billboards all over Canada and multiple different locations. There's a new TV commercial. There's a lot of clips on the news. There's a coloring contest. There's a lot of really cool things that are happening that I encourage you to check out on their website. And of course, from Instagram, I did something cool. I was in a magazine, first official non-dental magazine called Hello Magazine, which is a Canadian Hello version. The cover is royals and Lady Spencer, Princess Diana's niece got married, and all of these amazing things happening. Oh, look, there's Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively just chilling. I see some clapping for Adam Sandler. Mindy got a purple award of some kind. Lots of really cool things. And then if you flip your way all the way to the back, here is your girl holding the sign. Actually, that's in the video right behind me here, holding the superhero sign that a student of mine drew for me. And I did not know that the Canadian Dental Hygiene Association, or that Canadian Dental Hygienists Association, is also part of this series and clip. And they wrote some really nice stuff, or I think it was Janice Tober who wrote something. And then I did a little Q&A in the corner here. So this was amazing. Today I got to be on Breakfast Television, which is still online, so I'll share the link below. We did this funny thing. It was 6 questions, and it was called Tooth or False. See what I did there? Because Tooth or Dare podcast and Toothlife Irene. So it was Tooth or False, and there were 6 questions that the hosts had to answer whether it was true or false. And I didn't realize that I read one of the questions wrong that actually made the answer be the completely different answer, and they aired it on television. And that was interesting, but that was really fun. So 5-minute segment. And then last week I did Breakfast Television. No, that was today. City Line with Tanya, who I did this thing with them during COVID. It was a TNT where they interviewed me in the office, but this was live on set, and it was the first time I'd ever been on an actual TV set. And there was a call time, and there's people, and there's microphones, and all of the stuff that you assume that you would see on a TV set. And then this morning was also very overwhelming because there was multiple areas, and it was really cool. So I'm glad that I got to do that. I'm glad that I got to advocate for dental hygiene in a way that makes a big impact to, even just getting people to know that independent dental hygiene is a thing. I had a conversation with Sid, who was the host of Breakfast Television this morning, and I was the last segment that went on before they closed. And we had a little bit of a chat about, what it is that a dental hygienist can do and does. And anyway, I think that's really powerful. So thank you for whoever found me on the internet and asked for me to do this. I was very grateful. So now let's get into the episode, shall we? This episode is sponsored by our friends at Philips, and it was recorded live on the trade show floor in Vancouver. It's my first time at the Pacific Dental Conference, which is PDC. Beautiful, scenery, mountains in the background, planes landing on water near the trade show. It was just absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, I only got to go in and out for under 18 hours. It was pretty nuts, but it was wonderful. The trade show floor was beautiful. It was so nice to see fellow Canadian peeps. I don't get to go to too many Canadian conferences, so it was really nice to get to connect with some of you viewers / listeners at home. So that was lovely. And we recorded this episode live on the trade show floor at the Philips booth. So we took over this cool little area, and I got to interview Dr. Donley, who you've seen on the podcast before, or you've heard him on the podcast before, but now you're going to get to see him on the podcast also. And let me tell you, he's not only brilliant, but he's also really entertaining. Dr. Donley practices in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He is a private practice periodontist, does perio and implantology. He's a really interesting guy. If you've asked him about flossing before, you know exactly what I mean, or his philosophy around flossing. You'll hear more about it in the episode. He's done a lot of really amazing things to connect dentistry and dental hygiene, doctors specifically in dental hygiene, and he's a huge hygiene advocate. It feels like he's like a hygienist at heart. He's spent his entire career fighting inflammation with his patients, and I think that, I don't even know how to say it, he works and he speaks with such conviction about our profession, that he has, almost all of the answers, and it's just time for us to absorb it all and implement it. So I think that he's a really interesting speaker to listen to if you ever get the opportunity. He's written a textbook. I think he wrote the very first debridement textbook, and active oral systemic health research. He does a lot of that stuff. So he's a huge intellect, but he's also a really great and kind human being. And I was grateful and honored that he chose to spend some time in his busy day right after speaking to talk to me about his lecture. And that's what this episode is basically all about. You'll hear some information about what he spoke about, and then some kind of tough questions at the end that I had for him in, true Irene style. So yeah, that was the interview itself. And lastly, you're going to hear the sponsored messaging right from the source. I got a chance to interview Cindy and Lindsay, who are both internal peeps from Philips. And I asked them 4 really difficult questions, and you'll hear the answers to each of them over the course of the next few episodes. One of them was about sensitivity, post-whitening or prevention of sensitivity, the difference between different types of power toothbrushes. And I think that you'll really enjoy this sponsored messaging because it also gives you an answer to the problems that we have in everyday life as a dental hygienist or dental person. So stay tuned to this episode with Dr. Tim Donley. And until next time, peace out, peeps. Are we simply flossing these days? What's the deal with flossing? We're going to interview Tim Donley. Don't ask him about flossing.
Oh, I know. Well, there you go.
I'm going to because
he'll go.
I want to. Okay, here we go.
This can be short because he's going to really do a good job on that.
One of the newest products in your armamentarium has been not a toothbrush. So over the last 24 months, Philips released a new product, 2, a handheld version and a tabletop version, which I have both of. That is not flossing.
Yeah.
It is using water irrigation to disturb interproximal and subgingival biofilm using a super specific, I guess it's called a nozzle, right?
Quad stream nozzle.
Quad stream nozzle. Yeah. Tell me more about that, about how the discussion will go with a patient who perhaps is being hammered into flossing regularly. And now we're developing a new product, and I mean, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Going back to Greece.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we know our patients don't like to floss.
Yeah.
And even those patients of ours who say they floss, some of them do a great job, others
not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're surprised when they say they have been flossing because there's no evidence of that in their mouth. Exactly.
Right.
So and for many years, dental professionals have pushed the floss.
Yeah.
And I believe it's time to end the madness because, I mean, if they're using it correctly,
stop the madness.
Leave them alone, right?
Yeah.
Leave them alone. If they're healthy, leave them alone. Let them do what they're doing. But if they're not, and there's so many that aren't, then let's recommend something that they might actually use. And the Philips Sonicare Power Flosser is very exciting because it uses very unique technology in that quad stream nozzle to cover 9 times more surface area than a standard nozzle will cover.
Wow.
It's easy to use, and it has 2 modes. It has a clean mode, which is 60 seconds. At the 30-second mark, it hesitates to tell you to move to the second half of the mouth. But in the deep clean mode, it's 90 seconds. Every 1.33 seconds, it tells you to move to the next tooth. So it's really the only oral irrigation device on the market that has a tooth-by-tooth pacer, which is completely different from anything else. So it has that. It has the quad stream nozzle, which sprays in an X-shaped pattern, really covers a lot of surface area, so that it removes 99.9% of biofilm.
99.9% of
almost perfect, just like you.
So
Irene.
do I still need to brush? Almost perfect, just like me. Oh my gosh, can I bottle you up? Did you hear her, Alessandra? She said I was perfect. She's like, I can't hear her.
One of the studies was looking at how, with a manual toothbrush plus string floss, manual toothbrush plus power flosser, and power toothbrush and power flosser. The power flosser groups both of them with manual toothbrush and power toothbrush perform better than the
There's a study for this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the abstract is on phillipsoralhealthcare.com.
Yep.
So so it just shows that both of them work better, but when you combine the power flosser and the Sonicare, it really removed biofilm significantly better, reduced gingival inflammation, and reduced bleeding.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a study against string floss. A study was also done comparing interdental brushes, and we know interdental brushes, when you find the right size and you use it regularly, they can be very effective. But it even cleans better than interdental brushes,
and
which
the
is really
struggle
great.
with interdental brushes is we have so many different embrasure sizes and spaces.
Yes.
Some that go through and through, some that are only from the buccal versus from the lingual, or we've got areas that have implants. So then someone would have to have, like, I don't know, I just envision this, like, knife kit, like the chef's knife kit.
With all the different
when you open up and you're like, well, with this area I'm going to use this paring knife, and on this other one I'm going to use a cleaver. And I'm just thinking about
what patient is going to do that.
Right. I mean, the inability to really tailor that intraoral care and be careful with implant areas where you actually don't want to use floss, because there's some research that suggests that the exposed threads will take some of the filaments of floss, and it can lead to long-term implant failure and implant mucositis and periimplantitis. So I think that what's the safest thing to use is water and air, where there isn't a lot of, like, physical touch to those sensitive structures.
Yeah.
But, okay, thanks for the tips.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Donley, welcome back.
It's thrilling to be here.
Are you thrilled?
Absolutely positive.
This is exciting.
Yeah, no, this is what makes dentistry worthwhile.
You think so?
Yeah, the energy.
The energy.
It's
I love companies like Philips that allow us to take over a third of their very expensive booth for some bright lights and some fun content, because I love podcasts, but I think live podcasts are just way more engaging.
No, the live podcast is good, and then also all of the leftover free stuff at the booth.
Do we get the free stuff?
I'm absolutely going to take it, whether we get it or not.
With the big toothbrush? I would love this thing in my office. That'd be cool.
Yes.
Someone's going to be able to take that home.
Yes.
We're here at PDC to talk about your lecture that you delivered today, and you're delivering one tomorrow. And it's on implant failures, implant maintenance. I think I'll read the synopsis. So it's keep your implants off the failure list, what to do before, during, and after placement. Where you discuss peri-implant disease as a growing concern, which includes periimplantitis and perimucositis, right?
Correct.
And then you talk about the differences between the disease process around these implants compared to natural teeth. And I'd love to get your insights on, what does that look like in your practice? What does your team do? Like, tell me from the beginning to end, kind of, a short 15-minute version of your lecture, but how everyone has a different protocol. Like, there is no, this is what we all must do, is there?
There is not, but there needs to be.
Yeah.
And actually, the title might be how to keep your implants off the failure list, but it's really a wider subject. The The topic that I've been hot on for the last couple of years is there's a better way of doing things in dentistry. And it's not just that it's what the evidence says. You have to, part of the evidence-based approach indeed involves looking at what the literature says, but then using clinical judgment. By definition is part of that. And very few of us dental professionals feel empowered to use our clinical judgment. And as a result, we end up doing things because that's the way we were taught. So the topic today happens to be dental implant maintenance. However, it can apply to all aspects of dentistry. When it comes to keeping your implants off the failure list, the thing that's critical to realize is it's a whole different world in dentistry. You know, we used to always be about, first of all, for cleaning people's teeth.
Sure.
Which theoretically does nothing, you know, in the long term. Then secondly, we became noble and we're about helping people save their teeth, which we still can do, but we now know without question that the goal of dentistry has to be to help people maintain a preferred level of oral health. And a preferred level of oral health is a dentition that's aesthetic, that's functional, but that's relatively disease-free over time.
Right.
And then to be maintainable as such. And certainly implants play a role. We know that if there's disease that's persistent in the mouth, there's no question about the fact that that can have adverse effects beyond the mouth. It's indisputable. Forget wasting your time on, well, there's no proof that periodontal disease is linked to anything. It's overwhelming that inflammation in the body drives systemic disease. It's indisputable that the mouth contributes to that inflammation if there's disease in the mouth. So, yeah, help people keep their teeth, make them look nice, but absolutely make sure patients realize they have to partner with us for life to keep things relatively disease-free over the lifespan.
Right.
Now, the reason that's significant with implants is, in a nutshell, the disease process around implants is magnified compared to natural teeth. We struggle enough with natural teeth getting and keeping them inflammation-free. And for all the reasons that I said, it provides benefits beyond the mouth. Man, it's really significant to do that around implants.
Yeah.
The second issue is you can't approach it the way we've approached it with natural teeth. Totally different story. There's a lot of nuances with titanium and how we handle titanium. So what the course is about is based on the current knowledge today. This is what my clinical judgment says is a reasonable thing to do to manage the health of soft tissues around titanium.
So what do you recommend? What types of things are your clinicians in your practice doing for an implant?
The best way to discuss it is to first you have to define the disease.
Sure.
Disease around implants has really little to do with pocketing.
Right.
And we've sold ourselves on the fact that, you know, we're all about pocketing. Now, disease by definition now around implants has to do with inflammation. So you treat if there's inflammation on implants, most notably visible with bleeding upon probing. And we have to treat or at least offer treatment till we get the site relatively free of inflammation over time. So number one, we have to, every time the patient comes in, if there is titanium in their mouth, determine if there's inflammation in the soft tissues adjacent to the titanium, because that disease, if it is present, is magnified compared to natural teeth. Then secondly, we know, like natural teeth, the disease process is initiated by bacteria, and of course it's the host response that results in that. What we have to do is interrupt the bacteria. Well, that's where things differ than with natural teeth. In essence, probably the best way to think about it is there's smooth titanium and there's rough titanium. Now, typically the fixtures have both a combination of smooth and rough titanium. The rough part is designed to create more surface area so that the bone fuses
integrates,
around. Right. If either the implant isn't placed properly or if disease has caused the bone to deteriorate to where I have to stop smoking. That's all there is to it.
You can drink. Have a drink.
Well, I think when we look at the history of implants and what implants have looked like and progressed over the years, I mean, rough was always advised to be best because the goal was integration with bone. And then over the course of the years, it has become a smoother and machined surface. But
Well, most implants, though, but
some still have a combination of the two.
Yeah, most have a roughened surface but the point is that's supposed to be encased in the bone.
Yeah.
So number one, what I teach is when you're placing the implant, make sure that you're placing it such that the rough portion is encased not just in bone, but in viable bone.
Mm-hmm.
But then if bone resorption has caused that rough titanium to be exposed, no longer encased in bone, then we have to start, and there's disease, we have to then consider how do we interrupt the etiology from smooth titanium and from rough titanium. And the etiology itself is not just plaque and calculus, but there's microscopic etiology.
Sure.
And everything's caused by biofilm. Biofilm forms plaque. Plaque calcifies on calculus. And of course, when I say calculus, we all know what that is. But in reality,
Somehow you're shorting out. There we go. Try that again.
biofilm forms plaque. Plaque calcifies on calculus. But in reality, not all biofilm is visible, not all calculus is clinically visible. If you want to maximize resolution of disease, you have to remove any visible detectable etiology. You have to remove any potential microscopic etiology.
Mm-hmm.
The way we have to determine whether microscopic etiology is present or not is we assume at a site where there's disease,
Mm-hmm.
that there is microscopic etiology. So to maximize the chance that we get health to be restored, and the underlying, such as it's really important around implants, we have to
So let me intervene your thought process there with a question about most recently guided biofilm therapy. GBT airflow has become a really popular thing among the cool kids these days. Thoughts on the use of it? I mean, the goal is that we're not just removing purple stuff off the teeth and making it look cute. What are your thoughts on the use of it with regards to implant maintenance?
Yeah, great question. And whether we're talking about air polishing or titanium tip curettes or chlorhexidine, local antibiotic delivery, any method of debridement, the critical thing to realize is the goal is now, or the objective is to remove both clinically detectable etiology, any potential microscopic etiology.
Yeah.
But the latest information says there's two additional parameters. One, we don't want to mess with the chemical composition of titanium. There's a titanium oxide layer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what allows for implants to work. We're finding out that a lot of chemotherapeutics, acidic chemotherapeutics, can affect the titanium oxide layer.
Mm-hmm.
We're also finding out that mechanical manipulations can affect that titanium oxide layer.
Mm-hmm.
So number one concern with whatever method you're using is, does it remove the etiology in all of its forms, and does it affect the titanium oxide layer? A second concern that's growing that absolutely is going to come home to roost is that certain manipulations cause the release of extremely small particles of titanium, these titanium nanoparticles, which have been implicated in long-term disease. Bottom line, what this all means is we might be making it worse.
Is there a long enough study? I mean, is there a long enough research that decides what the implications are of?
Well, of course, there's never sufficient length.
Right.
However,
most studies end with more study is required.
Right. We're getting this from medicine, and
Right.
medicine's well aware of this with artificial hips.
Right.
That even during passive wear, that the titanium nanoparticles can be released and cause a foreign body response. And what that all means is, as we talked about earlier, from a clinical judgment standpoint, you got to decide what's the most reasonable thing. So if there's microscopic etiology on smooth titanium, air polishing absolutely positively has the potential to remove that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Rough titanium that's no longer encased in bone, we really don't know. No matter what powder you're expressing during the air polishing, we really don't know what effect that's having on the titanium, nor whether the impact of that releases titanium particles. We don't know.
Yeah.
In terms of chemotherapeutics, any acidic chemotherapeutic, interesting enough, fluorides are implicated in affecting titanium. You know, my clinical judgment says if your patient has implants and there's titanium exposed to your cavity and you're going to bleach their teeth, man, you probably want to put some masking agents over the titanium because the bleach can change the chemical composition.
And it also changes the pH of the mouth in general. So, I mean, increased levels of oral pH using some
no question.
Take home trays, for example, that have carbon peroxide or carbamide peroxide.
Absolutely.
That would be a no-go in my game.
So what we do in our practice is if there is an implant present, the first thing we want to know is there inflammation in the tissue? If there isn't, we don't do a thing. That whole adage of giving it a few good scrapes, the risk of messing up the titanium is too great. We don't do a thing if it meets the definition of health. If there's disease, the next question is, has there been bone involvement? If there's bone loss, by definition, it's periimplantitis. As a general rule, you cannot address that non-surgically.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Even surgically, we're limited. But for peri-implant mucositis, to get that, which is reversible to reverse, if there's etiology on smooth titanium, calcified debris, you can use either a protected ultrasonic insert or you can use a titanium-tipped instrument. Calcified, clinically detectable calcified debris on smooth titanium. If you're talking about removing biofilm, microscopic etiology from rough titanium, I'd be hesitant to use air polishing. For that, what I like to use is an ultrasonic device, but not actually touch the surface. You know, I call upon the beneficial aspects of the cavitational effect.
Yeah.
So I can hold the insert as close as possible to the rough titanium, let the cavitational effect
disturb itself.
To remove calcified debris from rough titanium, we have no good solution.
Right.
We don't have a solution to remove it without messing up the titanium.
Absolutely.
Dentistry has to figure that out.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing the insights of your lecture. I appreciate your time
you
today.
bet.
This is going to be fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
You can say goodbye to everybody?
This is always the best, and the important thing in dentistry nowadays, especially since most things are virtual, is get someone you believe in and to use that interaction to better formulate your own clinical judgment.
Agreed.
And I think it's quite clear. I deeply believe in you.
Wow. Dr. Donley.
No, that's the truth, man. It's
Thank you.
There's a lot of places to get information. There's not a lot of places to get good, solid information. And
I believe in science.
Yep.
One way or the other. I mean, I will share a study of something that I thought I believed in, and now I no longer do.
If you believe in science, then I believe in you.
Thank you.
How's that?
Wait, don't go yet. We're going to do one quick 2-minute clip with 2 hard questions with Dr. Donley.
All right.
You got 2 hard questions coming at you, Dr. Donley. You ready?
Lay them on me.
Number 1, what's one thing you wish you didn't know?
One thing that I wish I didn't know.
Think about it. Take a sip of water. We'll edit out all the dead air. But what's one thing you wish you didn't know about anything, about life, about jazz music, about you name it?
One thing that I wish I didn't know is that most people fake it. Most people fake it.
Do they fake it until they make it, or do they just fake it the whole way?
No, I think there's a lot of people that fake it the whole way. And naively, I used to be relatively literal and believed what people said and responded to that. And sadly, you can't do that, you know.
Agreed. Last question. Tell me how you feel about floss. I saved that one to the very end. So some people may call you notorious for it. You are notorious for being what's the opposite of an advocate? You hate floss.
No, it's not that I hate it.
Do you hate it?
No, I believe science. It's worthless. It's completely worthless. If your patient is flossing and they have no disease, keep doing it. Absolutely positively. The bottom line is floss was invented by a dentist in his basement. That's the research behind it.
Okay.
and that's where it came from. And you put a piece of string between the teeth, and you smell it, and it smells real badly, and you go, wow, this must be a good thing to do.
It must be working.
Okay, the etiology is microscopic. We know
Right.
that. The tooth surface isn't smooth, and it isn't concave. If you diagram an interproximal tooth surface, floss hits it in 2 points.
Yep.
That's the only thing that you're going to remove mechanically. There are much more effective ways to expose the maximum amount of the surface to a method capable of interrupting even microscopic etiology. Floss ain't it. Europe's way ahead of us. They know it. They get it.
Yep.
It's so misplaced and so pathetic that we have embraced that as the solution to dental health. None of your patients, I'm telling you, go home and take 12 inches of floss, roll it between their middle fingers, form the letter C, go up and down till it squeaks, advance it to a clean part, and go up and down till that squeaks.
We're lucky if we get them to brush twice.
Yeah, nobody does it. The ones that do don't do it right.
Right.
But most importantly, it's not the best thing for the job.
I was at the airport last week coming home from Chicago, and I was going to get a bottle of water. From one of those, vendor kiosk things. And there was a woman that had a piece of floss. She was holding it out to about, I don't know, half a foot or a foot. And she was seesawing it between like two teeth at the same time. It looked like she was cleaning her back with it. And I walked over there and I grabbed the bottle from the cooler and I put it on the thing. And luckily she hand sanitized a little bit, but I didn't know what she was doing. So I said, that's the most interesting flossing technique I've ever seen. And she's like, oh, I had Chipotle for lunch, and she gave me this whole spiel. And I was like, has anyone ever showed you how to floss properly? And she just kind of looked at me blankly. I'm like, I'm a dental hygienist. And she's like, oh, well, what are the odds? And I'm like, so maybe you should watch a YouTube video or something, because what you were doing was like chopping down a tree, seesawing this like 1 foot long piece of floss. So if they're going to do it like that, then I'd rather they just don't do it at all.
Go ahead and watch the videos. When the report came out calling into question the necessity to floss a couple years ago, and it was like this public outrage. I have this great clip of the current president at the time of the Academy of Periodontology saying and we're not saying don't floss, it's really important. And he, on a typodont, is demonstrating he's
incorrectly.
doing it wrong. Yeah.
That's too
it's
funny.
Like, yeah, okay.
I don't even want to get into what is seen endoscopically with an endoscope of patients that are flossing incorrectly, and also flossing around implant structures, filaments of that floss. It's being seen subgingivally. I mean, I don't even want to get into that, because I feel like Dr. Donley is just he's going to flip this table now in rage. Just
take your floss, tie a knot around your finger, and use it to remind you that there are better ways to clean it approximately.
And then hang up Christmas ornaments with it, because it has a peppermint scent, and it's really nice for your tree.
You can do that, yes. I live in Kentucky. We have bacon-flavored floss, and my patients still don't do it.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you for your tips. Appreciate it, Dr. Donley.
Cool.
You're amazing. Thank you, sir. That's it. We're done.